Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
For those who don't know, I guess for those who know, I shouldn't even say it, but for those who don't know, I wrote a book called Foundational Networking. And the premise of the book is simply this, is that people think of networking in terms of strategies and tactics and things like that. And really what makes us successful with respect to networking are these foundational elements of what I term as being our presence, our altruism, our propensity to give to others, and then our integrity. Those are really kind of translated know, like, and trust. You know, people need to know us, they need to like us, and they need to trust us. And one of the things I talked about in the book is just kind of, I put forth a hypothetical. If you had an opportunity to network with somebody who was downtrodden, a mope, just not in a good mood, or an opportunity to network with somebody who had a big smile on their face and they're fun and they're happy, who would you choose? And most people are going to say, I want to be with the fun person. And I use that as a perfect case study for saying, well, that's who you need to be. You need to be the purpose. You need to be the person you want to be with. And so I think, just this whole attitude of being happy and grateful is really a powerful force for us in networking. So I use that to introduce my guest today. I got Ricky Powell on. This is big time. He started his professional career at 7 as a child actor in the 70s with Hollywood's biggest legends. And then after college, he moved behind the camera. He was doing post-production on the Golden Girls before arriving at NBC, where he worked the next 25 years, putting every comedy, drama, and reality show on the air. He left in 2015. He's become an author, speaker, corporate trainer, executive coach, and he's spoken and trained on many topics: positive psychology, communications, sales, leadership, conflict resolution, time management, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and has a litany of just who's who clients in the Navy, the Senate, Oracle, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Nestle, Chase Bank. And part of what he really focuses on is happiness, gratitude, joy. And he and I were introduced or met really somewhat unrelated to this, but when this came out, it's like, oh my God, I got to have you on. I got to get you on the podcast. You're kind of a sales consultant guy. It's like, you guys are a dime a dozen. Happiness people, Ricky? Not as many. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, Frank, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a blast. And I already know it's going to go way too fast.
Yeah. Well, we can do it we can do a follow-up at some point, right? That's
Absolutely.
The beauty of podcasting.
Right.
Yeah, no, you have quite a story here. When did you realize that, this whole notion of happiness, and because we kind of live our lives and we know these things, or I shouldn't say we know these things, but we just know we have better results when we're in better mood.
Right.
And I blow up my life every time I get on the phone and I'm in a bad mood. I spend the next 3 days apologizing.
Right. And to your point, where it's just so much easier not doing that in the first place. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really learning the tools that can help you with that. Right. And and they're so easy. It's so funny in NLP, it's a lot of it is about language and words. The words we use are so important. And so when you use what we call universal qualifiers like always and never, not a good thing to do, because chances are nothing is always or never. It's somewhere in between. And a lot of times we hear people say things about working out or happiness or, the important things in life. We hear it's simple, it's just not easy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, it's like weight loss. We know the formula for weight loss.
Correct. Hmm.
My doctor tells me I still need to lose 10 pounds, right? I mean, it's there.
Right.
It's just not
Right.
easy.
And so, but the thing is, when we say it's not easy, and listen, it if you really drill down, is it hard? I mean, I think that difficulty sometimes is in the eye of the beholder. And the first thing I want to do is just put this disclaimer out there, right? Like, there is no way that a person can be happy all the time, nor
Hmm.
nor would they want to be, because then if you're happy all the time, you don't even know, you have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
Um, and so there is pain in life for sure. Life can be difficult, it can be hard, it is painful many times, but it's knowing how to live through that pain and push through it and do everything you can to come out the other side. And if it involves grieving, that's great. Then do it. Grieve and spend the appropriate amount of time, whatever that may look like for you. But just know that, we also really need to be resilient. And the quicker we can come back and be our own best friend again and be that light for others, it's just going to make us that much stronger and better going forward and happier.
Yeah. No, I mean, these are all great points. Yeah, the notion of that we have to have these down days. We do. If
Yeah. In fact, I think you would ask me, like, when was the first time I
yeah.
really realized all of this? And, in positive psychology, they sort of came out with this model or equation, I should say, that 50%, we all have this happiness set point, and they say that 50% of it is inherited. We get it through our genes from our parents. We have no control over it. There's nothing we can do about it. And then 10% are based on our life circumstances, meaning,
Sure.
are you living in a free country? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have enough to eat? Are you earning enough money to sustain yourself? Do you have good relationships? All of those sorts of things. And then the remaining 40%, Frank, is a choice. It's all about our daily habits and what we're doing on a daily basis. And that's a large percentage. And for me, I was very lucky. I say this, but I'll explain. I was going to say I was lucky in the genes department because my mom was that bright light and beacon, and everyone adored her, and she was just such a warm, loving, genuine person. Now, having said that, she lived through a very dark, childhood and upbringing, and um, ended up divorcing my dad when I was 13, and there was a lot of pain associated with that. And by the way, she had a temper as well. But I lost her in 2002. She was just 73 when she passed away. But I have the best memories ever growing
Mhm.
up with her, and so I really appreciate that. And I got a lot from my dad too. But then what happened was, when I was 23 years old, I ended up losing my best friend in an instant. He was like the brother I never had. We went to high school and college together. It was the most painful, devastating thing I had ever
Mm.
been through. And that kind of really shook me awake and helped me start searching for what is happiness and all of that sort of thing. And then just a couple years later, when I began my journey at NBC, I was working with a very challenging individual for my first 9 years at the company. It's a long time.
Yeah.
And in an effort to try and help him, but really help myself get through the pain that I was experiencing, I picked up my first book on the subject of happiness, called Happiness is a Serious Problem by Dennis Prager. And I became so fascinated with it, Frank, that I read every book on the topic, listened to every program, ended up writing my own book in 2012, helped charter Toastmasters at NBC Universal. So then I started speaking on it, doing public speaking on it inside, then outside the company. And I began really carving out this whole new career while I was still at NBC, even. And it's the best thing I have ever done.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we can't see the water we're swimming in, right? I mean, it's just we get stuck in, and I have moments like that. I'm tired, and I recognize anymore I'm tired. I just need to, I was telling my wife this morning that naps are perfectly acceptable at my office. If you need a
Right.
nap, take a nap, right? Not a
Yeah.
3-hour nap, but 20 minutes, just kind of just reboot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's good for you.
yeah. But I remember once I had a franchisee who came to me and he said, I'm just not happy. And my gut was, okay, I need to fix something.
Mm.
And I looked at him, I caught myself and I looked at him and I said, I can't make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
I can do something here in the moment that'll bring you satisfaction in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to determine whether you're going to be happy. You need to look at what's wrong and just say, is that why you're not happy? You're not satisfied with the situation, but when you tell me you're not, I can't fix that. I can't make people happy.
Right.
They have to decide to be happy.
100%. Yeah. And it's funny. I was reading just this article this morning, in fact, on what they call toxic positivity, which
Oh
I
yeah.
find so fascinating because, once in a while I'll do a presentation um, and people will get the idea that, again, that I'm discounting or ignoring the other side of it, the pain and what I was talking about before, which I'm absolutely not. And yet at the same time, there's this term toxic positivity. And so, it is about largely that denial or shaming people, if they're not positive all the time and that sort of thing. And but one of the things that was on the left-hand column falling into the toxic positivity category was the statement, happiness is a choice. Well, that one for me is kind of up for grabs because I really have always believed that happiness is a choice. In fact, my first website was called I Choose Happiness. And, you know, again, doesn't mean you're happy all the time, but it is a conscious decision because it's like, I'm going to do everything I can to help myself be that beacon and be that light, not only for myself, but for others, because it's all contagious, right? To your question of who would you want to network with or be sitting next to on a bus or any of that,
Yeah.
the mope or the guy who's happy or whatever, it's all contagious. So, you very quickly can walk into a room and bring that energy level up, or you can do the exact opposite.
Yeah. Can you touch on, well, I guess there's a couple, I'll throw a couple words out there. Hedonics, the hedonic treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of touch on that for listeners?
Yeah, and we refer to, the different types of happiness as hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness, and one is more sort of self-serving, right? Hedonic and just striving for the quick pleasure, rushing down to Disneyland to have some fun
Yeah.
I'll be happy when. It's a lot of I'll be happy playing the I'll be happy when game. I'll be happy when I have a bigger home, I'm making more money, I meet my soulmate, I have my first child, my second child, when my last child moves out,
Right.
right? There's so many excuses we give ourselves why we can't be happy right now. And the bottom line is all we have is right now.
Yeah.
Versus, the opposite of that, the eudaimonic is really more looking inward and just wanting to be able to live a life of inner peace and joy and meaning, being able to make an impact, serving those you love, and just having a meaningful life. There's a great book by Dr. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Great book. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I
And
remember my dad gave it to me in high school. I'm like, what the hell you want me to do with
oh,
this?
oh wow, what a
But then picked it
gift.
up. Yeah, I know, but pick it up later. It's like, okay, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. I
Yeah.
wish I would have got it sooner, but I get it. You know?
Right. Right. It's an important lesson, right? I mean,
Yeah.
no one can take your will from you. That's
Yeah.
You are 100% in charge of your will. And when you have that will to pull through and get to the next level and find what's going to ignite you and excite you and get you really going, it's worth taking that dive.
Yeah. Well, the other word I was going to throw at you, which is probably less scientific, is gratitude.
Hmm.
I just think that's that to stop at any
Yeah.
moment and say, okay, you know what? I had a bad day the other day. I'm telling you, I had a bad day, and
Right.
I just kind of got a grip on myself, and it's like, you know what? I really have a lot of good things going on. We kind of focus on that that crap in our life, and as soon as you can step back from that and say, wow, this is nothing.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you touched on, I mean, gratitude is my absolute go-to for almost everything in life. I mean, when you can be truly grateful, not just for the big things, but for the little things, because what we found is many times those little things become the big things, right?
Hmm.
Like in our day-to-day lives right now, I mean, eh, breathing,
Yeah, right.
you don't even give it a second thought. Yeah, my heart's beating. Sure. I mean, we don't think about these things, but I will tell you that not a moment goes by when I am not so grateful for every single day that I am alive. When I lost my best friend at 23, my immediate thought was, oh my God, why him? Why not me? Because I felt like I should have been dead 1,000 times already
Hmm.
by that young age, just because of stupid things I may have done in my past and that I keep getting reprieves on or passes on and
Yeah.
all of the and yet here I am, and here's this perfect angel who never took a drug in his life, didn't smoke, didn't drink, was an athlete and would give you the shirt off his back, and he's just gone. And tiny example. In 2007, I walked around for 2 weeks with a ruptured appendix and was sent home from the hospital 3 times, just chalking it up to food poisoning or whatever else. And finally, I went back a third time and begged them to do a test. They did a CAT scan and they said, we have to admit you immediately. You have a ruptured appendix.
I
Walked
know
around
I
for,
was telling you
right?
that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Where's my lawyer? I need to file
Yeah,
some sort of, but I mean, and by the way, I never went there because that's just never been me either.
sure.
Like,
Yeah.
right. But I spent 6 days in the hospital, and again, not a breath. I didn't take a breath without being grateful for every moment. It's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend. He's 48 years old. His kids were going skiing. You got to go skiing? He said, no, I'm not going to go skiing. I said, well, why not? He's young, athletic. He said, well, I had 2 hips replaced. He said, I don't want to take a chance. And I said, you know what? It's a great time to be alive. Because 30 years ago, 50 years ago, it would have been like, yeah, sorry, buddy, here's a wheelchair. This is the rest of
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you're right. I don't need to
Hmm.
ski. I can walk. I'm fine. You
Right.
know, it's,
Yeah. 100%. And I think expectations play into it a lot. I think sometimes I'll share with people that it's good to sometimes have little or no expectations, because all that can lead to is disappointment, because if those
yeah,
expectations aren't met, you're going to be disappointed.
yeah,
So it's kind of like walking into every new situation just, at this baseline level,
yeah,
and just allow it to unfold and enjoy what good comes out of it, you know.
yeah. And in recent years, I have kind of gotten to that point where it's, I'm not really looking for anything. I can't control it. Ricky, I can't control
Yeah,
what people do for me. I
that's
can't
right.
control what they say about me. I can't control any of it. I can control how I react. And be
Yes,
understanding. Okay, I understand. I understand why you can't help me. I appreciate it. I'm disappointed, but I understand, moving
yes,
on. I love you just the
absolutely.
same,
Hmm.
and I don't feel that angst.
Yeah,
It's a friend of mine, Dr. Rob Bell, he wrote in one of his books, he talked about he's a sports psychologist, and when he was in grad school working on his doctorate, he was working for the baseball team. Supposed to get paid. The coach didn't pay him. He left. He was bitter for years. And what he finally did was he just wrote a letter to the baseball coach at Christmas time, holidays, and just said, "Hey, you know what? I was mad about this. I'm not anymore. You're forgiven. How are you doing?" And he says, "Every year I write the guy a letter." And he says, it just he didn't have this poison in him anymore, right? I mean, it's really what it was.
hmm,
He could, you're not going to get paid. It's gone. Being angry doesn't change anything.
that's right.
It's a beautiful
And
story.
oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And again, in fact, forgiveness is is one of my top three pillars, for happiness. There's gratitude. Forgiveness is number two. It's a huge one because to your point, when you hold a chip on your shoulders or you're angry or upset at someone, we know the expression from the computer days, garbage in, garbage out. But with anger, it's garbage in and garbage stays and festers and grows, and there's nowhere for it to go. And so when you hold on to all of that anger, whether it's being angry at someone else or, by the way, even at yourself,
Yeah.
and being angry at yourself for some stupid thing you may have done in the past, I believe that that's a lot of where our dis-ease comes from. It's from that anger being trapped with nowhere to go. And as soon as you can release it and let it go, it's the greatest gift you can give, not someone else, but yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you had kind of touched on it earlier, as happiness drives your network. You walk
Yeah.
in, people want to be around you, but
Hmm.
you help drive the network then, right? I mean, it's just because they become more joyful. One of
Yes.
your other pillars, gratitude,
Hmm.
reading your bio here, gratitude, forgiveness, and joy. And it's kind of this what is it, a virtuous cycle, upward cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just an amazing thing.
It's a spiral upward, and then also service, right? Being able to
Yeah,
serve others. Um, I know you had a conversation with Bob Berg, right? From the Go
yeah,
Giver.
yeah,
Yeah. What just an amazing, wonderful book and man, and I'm just so about that. It's like you have to, giving, there's an expression, giving starts the receiving process. But that's not why we give, hopefully. It's just giving to give. Um, and you know it's just when you're serving others, it's hard not to feel better and happier yourself.
yeah.
And there's an expression we have, or that I learned at Southwestern Consulting. It's hard to be nervous when your heart is on service.
Mm,
And I really love that.
I love it as well. All right, to wrap up here. You mentioned Southwest Consulting. You do some work with Southwest Consulting. What are some other things you do? How could people help you? How could they
Yeah,
get a hold of you?
thank you, Frank. Yeah, it's Southwestern Consulting, and yeah, I'm working with them, doing, sales training, business coaching. If people are struggling and just wanting to have someone in their corner, I'm happy to have a conversation with them. I have my lifelong happiness platform. I love helping people, just all the way around, mindset, very holistically, because that's how we live life, right? It's a 360-degree sort of sphere that we have. It's very hard to be happy at home and miserable at work, or vice versa. It just needs to be a cohesive, holistic experience. So People can get a hold of me. My schedule is online at meetwithricky.com, or I'm on LinkedIn. I go by Lifelong Happiness on LinkedIn, or Ricky Powell. And they can also get me on that old phone number thing at 805-279-4222. And I answer my own calls. What do you know?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. I really do appreciate your time. You are, you're the highlight of my podcast, and I think you're almost episode 670. So
wow.
You and Bob Berg. I had Bob Berg on. I've had some others, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, Frank, thank you so much. This is wonderful. I hope we get to do it again.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.